Evening. Welcome to the Gresham-Barlow Board of Education business meeting on Wednesday, September 4th. If you would stand, please, Dr. Farnes will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call this evening. We show in attendance Chris Howitt, Chair, Kathy Keithley, Vice Chair, Blake Peterson, Director, David Ligatich, Director, Holly Riegelman, Director, Dr. Myra Gomez, Director, Dr. Sean Farnes, Director, and Superintendent James Hugh. With everyone in attendance, our next item is to approve the meeting agenda, and I would like to pull consent item C3 to action item I6. So with that, if there's a motion to approve the meeting agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. And by presented, you mean with the pulling of the consent agenda item?
As you just presented, yes.
Okay, I just wanted for clarification. Thank you. Any other questions about the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land where Gresham-Barlow School District is located rests on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, bands of the Chinook, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous and Native American families today. As settlers and guests on these lands, we respect the work of Native nations, leaders, and families, and make ongoing efforts to center Indigenous knowledge, creativity, resilience, and resistance. We consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us here today.
Reconocemos que la tierra donde está ubicado el distrito escolar Gresham-Barlow descansa sobre las tierras ancestrales y no cedidas de Multnomah, Clackamas, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, bandas de Chinook y muchas otras tribus que establecieron sus hogares a lo largo del río de Columbia. También reconocemos las políticas sistémicas de genocidio, reubicación y asimilación que todavía afectan a muchas familias indígenas nativas americanas en la actualidad. Como colonos e invitados en estas tierras, respetamos el trabajo de las naciones, los líderes y las familias nativas y hacemos esfuerzos continuos para centrar el conocimiento, la creatividad, la resiliencia y la resistencia indígena. Consideramos los numerosos legados de violencia, desplazamiento, migración y asentamiento que nos trae aquí hoy.
And Superintendent Hugh, you and I had talked earlier this afternoon regarding once again, another horrific incident in Georgia, the tragedy of a shooting at a school. And I recognize that there are often calls for silence and prayer and thoughts. And after we get past the silence and the prayers and the thoughts, I'd like for us to engage in a little bit of anger, and something has to be done. And we've had 345 mass shootings in 2024. Not all of them at schools, but we've had that many. There are 4 dead students, or 4 dead in Georgia, 2 students, 2 staff members. 9 others were victims. And I look at that as well. The entire school is traumatized. There's trauma throughout that school. There's trauma here. There's trauma everywhere that we go. And so I would like for us to engage in a little bit of anger, as well as support and grace for the families that are impacted by school shootings. So thank you for the indulgence. Superintendent Hugh, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? Thank you. Next up, guidelines for public comment. Miss Avery, I know that we have several that were sent in early. Do we have any that have been brought this evening?
We didn't receive any brought today before the meeting. Everything that was entered was sent electronically.
Okay. So the ones that we received that were sent to us and our public comments is directed by Board Policy BDDH. And people can either come in person, they can do it virtually, or they can submit it ahead of time. So the ones that we received ahead of time that the board does look at, and as we look at them in particular, we determine which ones need to go to the superintendent for follow-up. So we received the following ones over the last couple of days. Okay. David Drake regarding the destruction of habitat via the Saltquist Road property sale. Robert W. Drake III, the traffic congestion caused by development on Saltquist Road. Leanne McAfee, livability and home devaluation. I'm assuming that's about the Saltquist Road property as well. Tom Eubanks, a request to put the Saltquist property sale on hold. Another one from Thomas Eubanks, the Saltquist Road property sale. And Thomas Eubanks, the Chase Road property. And then a letter from Laura Martin regarding the Gresham-Barlow School District dysfunction. So those are, and is that? You added another one just right at the end. Okay, let me get to that. So the last one that was added was Ty Wyman and declaring surplus district property. And he has an attached letter with that as well. So that was submitted just prior to the meeting. So we have 8 letters that the board will review and be working with the superintendent on these.
Chair Howitt, I believe that Mr. Eubanks was planning to speak to his. I'm not sure if he's here, and I thought Mrs. Martin was going to speak to hers as well. So maybe just check to see who's in attendance.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak to their letter to the board? If so, please come down to the front microphone, and I'm not sure who's in charge of the microphone down there. To turn it on. Okay. All right. And please state your name for the record and the content that you're bringing. You have approximately 3 minutes for the public comment portion. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come. My name is Tom Eubanks. I wrote several letters regarding the Saltquist property. And Ty Weinman is legal counsel that was hired by the Friends of Kelly Creek, LLC, which is an organization that was formed to help move forward on the Saltquist Road property. I think my notes summarize our concerns, but I'm going to just review it briefly for people who weren't aware of it. This is an issue that came up because the school district needed to find a place to house the administration. And it seems like in late 2022, some of the administration or the finance officer decided to enlist the help of a real estate agent to look at all the properties that were not being used by the school district. And on that laundry list, 2 of those properties, both in Kelly Creek, came up to be discussed. Chase Road property and the Saltquist Road property. They're both owned by the school district. One of them was gifted, the Chase Road property was gifted to the school district several years ago. And the Saltquist Road property was purchased by the school district 40 years ago and has been maintained by the school district since then. That's about where the similarities in those properties end. Both properties were taken by the real estate agent to the city of Gresham to have a pre-application process. At that pre-application process, which is on video, and both properties are back to back, so it's easy to watch. The Chase Road property turns out to be an island with only a driveway easement. It's 2.4 acres and really not a good candidate for development. It's surrounded by private homes and by Kelly Creek School. And there's no fire road access. There's no access to stormwater, to fresh water, or to the sewer. And it would be a difficult build for a builder because they need a 25-foot wide public utility easement to get those amenities in. The second property, the Saltquist property, is very favorable for development. It's 12.4 acres on relatively flat land with great access from Saltquist Road and a small road that goes into a well-established community called Inverness Road. And it has great access to all the necessary needs for a developer, stormwater, water, and sewer. That property, because it was such an ideal development piece of land, for some reason, it was never listed on RMLS. There were no signs ever posted to sell it. That property was sold by private phone calls. The Chase Road property, which is an island unto itself with very little chance of being developed, was put on RMLS, and it was sold as a possible dream home. If you read the RMLS listing, though, it states that it is zoned for LDR5, which is medium density building, townhomes, clusters, whatever. However, like I said, at the pre-application, the city established that that property was not going to be developed very easily. So while that property was on the market, they received a bid over the asking price with an built-in escalation from a couple of developers up in Washington. They bought the property, and I requested all the forms related to that property through a Freedom of Information Act and found out that the disclosures that the district made to these developers were inaccurate. And that's the Chase Road property form that I have provided. The Saltquist Road property was sold after a phone call or two. I've asked for all the names of the people who were contacted by phone. I received 6 names. 2 of them are associated with HEX. It's HEX, the HEX group, which is developing the property, and their real estate agent, Chris Anderson. I talked to Bill Bailey, who's a well-known real estate agent in Gresham. He never heard of the property. He knew it was for sale, but no one ever approached him or asked for an offer. And I also talked to one of the builders, Venema, and he said that he never received a phone call about the property and didn't know it was for sale. He did say if it comes back on the market to let him know, though. So the property that really had the most potential to be developed was sold privately. The property that is a hindrance was sold in ways which I find a little bit repulsive, because this is a school district. It's responsible for the ethical guidelines and education of our children, and I would expect them to be completely transparent with the sale of the property. So the Saltquist property is still pending, and the price of that property was fixed based on 80 single-family residences, because it's zoned LDR5 and LDR7. The fence line it has with Eagle Avenue and 22nd Avenue are all 10,000 square foot homes. The LDR7, which is 7,000 square foot lots, runs along that fence line all the way to the city park property. And then it turns into LDR5 or 5,000 square foot lots. So somewhere along the way, somebody in planning decided there would be a transition from 10,000 square foot lots to 5,000 square foot lots. And that has been superseded by middle housing, which was a state law that was passed a couple of years ago. So now the developer who, or the building developer who bought it at an 80 household, residential household rate, and they're putting in 149 townhomes. And again, that property was never listed on the market. There was no open bidding on that. And my concern is if that property is sold, that the taxpayers will undergo irreparable harm from the loss of the equity that they have had in that property for the last 40 years. So I'm requesting that the board stop the sale of that property and back up and do it the right way. And the right way means you follow state laws to sell public property, because that's what your own policy DN states, is that any property that's sold is sold by state guidelines. And
Sorry, just
So time up?
hard time, not up, just wrap it up if you could, sorry.
yeah, I'm wrapping up right now. This is the end. This is the end. With the difficulties following the policies with the violation of the state laws selling public lands, I'm asking that the school board in their vote tonight that's on the agenda not declare that land surplus and make the district pull back from the sale of that property. And if you think it's costly now, whatever the cost may be, it's going to be much more costly if the sale goes through, not only in dollars, but in reputation and respectability.
Thank you, Mr. Eubanks. Ms. Avery, was there anyone else that wanted to speak to theirs?
We should just ask.
Yeah, is there anyone else that wanted to provide?
Yeah, I mean, for Laura, she's a little tired after Wednesday last week. My name is Bill Martin. I'm a former teacher at San Barlow High School. You guys terminated me June 17th. I have my FDAB hearing starting tomorrow or set up, so we'll get moving on that. But I have Laura's here and I'm gonna try to, it's only 3 paragraphs, but Ms. Martin has been a high quality teacher at San Barlow for over 20 years. Throughout that time, she worked with students who had many challenging life circumstances by her choice. Every day she went to school to do her best for her students. Her long and storied career was brought to an unjust end on 8/28/24 by this school board. Well, 5 of you, 2 of you couldn't show up to that virtual meeting. Her crime on 1/22/20, Laura and myself requested a meeting with the district administrator that was titled Discussion of Hostile Work Environment at San Barlow High School. She feared for her personal safety and was concerned about the behavior of a specific GBSD administrator. During the meeting, she also reported the bond fraud that's occurred at San Barlow High School. She's been in the building since 2000. The actions of Gresham-Barlow School District and the Gresham-Barlow School Board will have a chilling effect on all its employees. Who can safely report wrongdoing or mistakes if the district's response is to terminate the messenger rather than work towards solving the problem? And today is the safety of GBSD students may depend on an employee's willingness to come forward and identify the problems. That's it. I don't know why you haven't posted the video. Reynolds High School or Reynolds School District had a meeting on Wednesday last week
Mr.
and they
Martin,
posted it the next
Mr.
day.
Martin, what Reynolds High School does is not
Sorry.
relevant to ours, so Ms. Avery's been working on it. Thank you.
It takes a week to post a
Thank you,
virtual.
Mr. Martin.
Yeah. This is not over.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak to their land use notice that was sent in earlier, or anyone that did not get an opportunity to send theirs in? Okay. Turn off that microphone. All right. You good? All right. Being no other public comments before the board, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. And as mentioned earlier, item number 3 has been pulled out and put onto an action item. In our consent agenda are minutes from the regular business meeting on July 3rd, the personnel report, employee contracts, the board goals, and so that is it. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda without item 3.
And it's been moved by Blake, seconded by Holly to approve the consent agenda with the movement of item number C3. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is our superintendent district leadership report on updates. So Superintendent Hugh.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Welcome back to the 2024-25 school year. I'm pleased to share with you some highlights from the first week of school. Actually, today is day 2, which has set a positive tone for the months ahead. Our schools are once again filled with energy and excitement as students and staff are returning to the classroom. And I want to commend everyone who's involved for making a smooth and successful start. Last week, we had our convocation where we had a student and staff focused event where our theme has been Be Here, which is a theme this year to encourage both student
and staff attendance within the district. This first week back has gone exceptionally well across the district. I've had an opportunity in the last 2 days to visit 8 different buildings, and my goal is by the end of business on Friday to have gone through all 17 of our schools. And I was impressed by the level of preparedness and enthusiasm demonstrated by both staff and our students. The hard work of our administrators, teachers, and support staff during the summer months have truly paid off. Classrooms are welcoming, routines have been established, and students are settling into their learning environments. Our commitment to ensuring a safe and secure learning environment remains a top priority, and I'm proud to report that our enhanced safety protocols are in place and functioning effectively. Students and staff alike are adapting well to those measures, and our focus on creating a positive school culture is evident throughout the district. So now this year, again, our convocation was focused on staff wellness and student success. We also highlighted our shared vision in supporting every student's academic, emotional, and social growth. The convocation served as a reminder to all of us the incredible impact that each of us has on shaping the future of our students. I was particularly moved by the stories shared by a recent graduate from the Ray Academy and through a teacher at Hall Elementary School. As we move forward, we will continue to emphasize the importance of staff wellness. A healthy and supported staff is the foundation of a thriving learning environment for our students. I look forward to seeing the positive ripple effects of this focus throughout the year. In closing, I want to express my gratitude for all of you for your outgoing support and leadership. Together, we will create a district that not only fosters academic excellence, but also prioritizes the well-being of our entire community. And then lastly, I would like to invite Dr. Sarah DeBoy, our Director of K-12 Schools, to give the board an update on some of the capital improvements that we've been undertaking this summer. Dr. DeBoy.
Thank you so much, Chair Howard and Board of Directors. It's my absolute pleasure to give you some updates and some celebrations of capital improvements happening around the district. This is just a part of our capital improvements, but some of the highlights and the most recent things that are happening. First off, we've been doing quite a bit of kitchen improvements at Dexter McCarty and Bell Valley Elementary School. We opened pretty much brand new kitchens on the first day of school. There are still some finishing touches to be done and things that are discovered in that first serve. But largely at this point, we have a new service line, roll-up doors, flooring, lighting, and equipment in both of those kitchens. At both West Orient Middle School and Hogan Cedars Elementary School, our walk-in cooler additions are still in progress. This is largely because of permitting, but we're hoping to have those this week. Could have even happened today, but I didn't hear from Director Taylor yet. So those are in motion, but safety and security were attended to prior to students returning to make sure that the areas that are under construction, which are on the outside of the building, were well secured and fenced off, and that there were no equipment or anything in the area that's going to disrupt school or be a safety issue for any of our students. Fields and lighting. I know this is much anticipated. The turf is completed at Gresham High School and was groomed actually this week in preparation for our team starting, God willing, with our heat advisory coming in. Lighting at Gresham High School will be installed September 16th through the 19th. Which was exciting because we thought we may be delayed due to some of the permitting, but it sounded like they were able to move it up for us. So we're very grateful for that. At Gresham-Barlow, the turf arrived on Tuesday. I was actually there when the big truck rolled up. It was pretty exciting. They will start with the baseball field, start sewing that in, and then move over to the softball field. That field lighting is scheduled for the first week of November. We also worked hard to talk about that safety and security of that area because we have students traveling back and forth on those pathways. And there's that upper parking lot that is closed during the day, so the construction can still have their necessary equipment and parking there. But then in the afternoons will be open so that the evening sports will be a way for members of our community to park there and then enjoy the athletics as needed. Finally, our school-based health center. received its temporary certificate of occupancy. Some of us were able to walk through today. There's still some finishing touches, including a mural that was designed by our own students in Gresham-Barlow School District that will be painted on. But that planned opening is in early October, and you'll get more information on that very soon. Finally, just a huge shout out to our facilities department. Being new to our district, I'm just so impressed with Terry Taylor and Alan Crapser and their eye on every single thing, as well as all the regular summer work and the other capital improvement projects. They're just to be commended for their hard work and dedication. It's been wonderful to see. That's our updates.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
You might have said it, but I might have missed it.
It's okay.
Do you have an estimated date that students can start using the Barlow fields?
For the baseball field and the softball field, they should be completed well in advance of any seasonal, practices coming up for say softball and baseball. I know that cautiously optimistic, they thought they'd have the baseball turf sewn in by the end of this week, just faster than we thought. And we were looking more into November, but they're moving quickly. They've been able to put 2 crews on it. So it might be prior to when we anticipated.
Any other questions? Okay. No? Okay, all right. Thank you, Superintendent Hughes. Is that it?
Thank you.
So next up is updates from board members. I'm going to start down at that end with Dr. Florence.
All right. So obviously took the summer off, but I was able to go to convocation last week, and it was really great to see. Prior to going, I was went as a staff member, so I was had that perspective, and now I'm went as a board member, so I had a whole different perspective, and both perspectives are awesome. It was great to see the staff. Super excited to start the school year. A lot of great speakers. Also, as I drive by the Gresham baseball and softball fields, it's been really great to see the community using it. That was kind of the intent of the turfing. And while I love to see baseball games and stuff, I saw some soccer going on. And so the multi-use is perfectly lining up with the reasoning behind it. So it was great to see. And I hope we get even more use out of it. So that was really cool to see.
Thank you, Director Peterson.
No, just really great to see first week of school. Love seeing friends and community members posting their pictures of their kids and the way that they're connecting to their schools, to our schools collectively. So, and obviously it's a big event in my home. So just so grateful for our teachers, our staff who have prepared the buildings, prepared a year of growth and learning and belonging, achievement for not just my kids, but the community. So that's it.
Director Gomez.
Enjoyed convocation last week, and I've enjoyed all the photos of the kids on social media. Kids very excited. And last Thursday, summer graduation. It's my 4th summer graduation, and it's always the highlight of the summer because it doesn't matter when kids finish. What matters is that they finish. And we had 9 kids walk across the stage, and even if it was just one kid, they deserve to walk in a cap and gown and be congratulated and celebrated by their families and their friends. So I appreciate our staff who put that on, and thank you for inviting me.
Director Nikitin.
These last 2 days have been actually very, very fun. I got to go down to East Orient with Principal Milliken, stand outside and greet all the children coming back to school, and see the cool backpacks and shirts and get to hear about their summer vacations and all that great stuff. It was pretty awesome. Today, this morning, I got to go to San Barlow High School with Principal Bear, and we got to greet all the high schoolers. It's way different. Some of them thought it was cool. Some of them kind of went, what's going on? But the cool thing was we had a parent drive up and he says, hey, that truck back there in the corners, there's some smoke coming out of it. You guys might want to check it out. So we sent the monitor over there and he comes back and he goes, yeah, they got a barbecue. They're making eggs and bacon and sausage and out of the back of the truck. And I thought, that is so cool. And really looking forward to the school year. I really am.
Director Beagleman.
It's been a busy summer personally and also the board for me. We've had a lot of board goals committee meetings through the summer. Just about to complete that process. So that's been great. I did go to convocation last week, although I hid with the teachers, so I wasn't announced and I was a little under the radar. So, but that was a lot of fun. I love seeing all the teachers and just their excitement for the new school year to start and smiles on their faces. They're really happy to be back and greet their students. So that's really fun to see. And then excited for the school year to start. I sent 4 kids off from my house yesterday and today. Some were more excited than others, but they were all excited to see friends and meet teachers and see who's in their class and all that. So looking forward to a great year and hopefully visiting our schools. So.
Director Keithley.
I was on the board goal committee and did spend a lot of time in the summer working through that process. And I want to kind of bring this back full circle because at convocation, it was exciting to see the excitement and the energy from a new school year. And I think as a board member and through our board goals, it would be important that we try to maintain some of that excitement even through the end of the year, because by the time the teachers and staff get to the end of the year, it's exhausting. So as a board member, I think we need to do everything we can to help what we, whatever we can direct with our board goals and such, we have to do that. The convocation and the student speaker, the staff speaker actually, and breakdancing and just his excitement and passion speaks to exactly what I speak to about all the time. And one of the most telling examples of that was Janine Kirstein's graduation. She graduated from teaching. It's retirement, but you can't, a lot of people can call that graduation as well. The number of students after 43 years as an educator, 25 of the last at Gresham High School, it was incredible to see. A former Miss America, a student just in from Berlin, who in middle school at Dexter McCarty lost his dad and couldn't talk, but he could sing. And she found in him this talent, and now he's singing across the world, literally. That's the impact our teachers make, and our staff, and your district staff. And my goal has been, or at least what's important, what I've seen just in the short 3 years I've been on here, is that when you can connect students to passion, you can get them to graduation, and it sets the stage for the rest of their life. So we have really important work to do. And as a board member, I want to do everything I can to help that.
Thank you. I was able to attend convocation and absolutely enjoyed it. I didn't think that I would stay very long after it was done. I wound up staying there for a couple of hours afterwards, walking around the building, talking with folks. I visited in the Sun classroom. The only place that looked familiar in the building, I finally found the spot, was the ramp going into the cafeteria. That hadn't changed, so I could get my bearings going on with that. Shout out to Chartwell's for the food that they provided that morning as well. It was just a fun time that day. I also got to pet the Dove Lewis dogs. I don't have a dog. I will never have a dog, but it was really fun to pet their dogs. And then know they were going home. We mentioned earlier the school-based health center, and I realized that I have not made a formal request to the board, that I think it probably needs to go onto one of our work agendas, Sarah. I would like to have some portion of the student-based health center have a memorial plaque for Catherine Ruthrup, who was a board member on this board and spent many, many years to make that student-based health center come to fruition. That was her goal, that was her vision, and at every turn, she reminded us that we needed to have that. Kathy passed away a couple of years ago, and I would like, even if it's a room, a door, something, I would like to have, if the board approves, I would like to have a commemorative for Kathy.
I just want to point out, because I had just asked the superintendent, a public member had asked me how, if we could name something else for someone else. And the superintendent said there's a process. So I would suggest the chair perhaps send that through the process and then maybe it'll come to the board for us to review. I just would hate to see a public person go, oh, that's how you do it. You know somebody. So there's a process, I guess I just learned.
Yep. So I will make that process through the superintendent and make sure that we have that happen. I think I've brought it up a couple of times to him, but I don't want to forget it in all of the stuff going on. We also have a couple of things that are going to be coming up that we will be talking about. I did spend a lot of time this last month or so with Oregon School Boards Association. They've had some change ups there, and I've had a few extra meetings going on with that. If you didn't see it in the newspaper, legislatively, they're talking about quite a big chunk of money being available in the budget. And we want to make sure that our voices are loud and clear when we talk about what we need for education. So I will be bringing information forward to the board in January, February, March, and April about what that looks like for us to be lobbying our legislators and talking to them about what needs we have. And then the last little bit, September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And they do have a crisis lifeline, 988, makes it a little bit easier to remember. Call, chat, or text. And it's just one tool of many. And if you're concerned about someone, let them know that you are concerned, that you're available. And just a reminder, gentle, that talking about suicide does not cause someone to commit suicide. Talking to them lets them know that somebody cares. So that is what September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. And I think that was all of my notes that I had. It was busy and it's going to be busy this year. So with that, go ahead and go on. We would normally have a quick recess here. Everybody ready to just keep going? All right, we'll keep going on. Next up, we just have for information, the board committee meetings and or reports. We have the board goals committee minutes from June 7th, as well as the board goals committee minutes from June 28th. Association reports. I see that we have Tia here tonight, and then I've heard that Matt Wallace will be available virtual, so I'm not sure who's going first. Sarah, is Matt ready to do his?
Why don't we start with Tia from OSCA, and then that way Sarah can promote him to a panelist, and then we can get that rolling.
Good evening, Tia. Welcome this evening.
Thank you, Chair Howlett, fellow members of the board, Superintendent Mr. Hugh. I don't really have anything to say other than it's very exciting to be back in school with the kids and seeing their smiles and getting to know all these new faces, and just want to squeeze them. We're not allowed to, but that is all I've got. We're just happy to be back, and I'll hopefully have something more to report next month.
Right, and I thank you, Tia, and I see Mr. Wallace is online, and good evening and welcome, Mr. Wallace.
Good evening, Chair Howitt, board members, Mr. Hugh. First of all, I apologize for not being there with you tonight. I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, and I didn't want to push it and risk the chance of getting sick and not being able to be there for the kiddos this first week. So I do appreciate your flexibility in allowing me to meet with you guys virtually this evening. I know I've said it before that I'm going to be brief, but I mean it this time. I really am going to be brief. I do not have a prepared statement. I just did want to recognize a couple of things that were in my head this evening. And the first is first recognizing all of our teachers and our classified staff with all of their effort and all of the work they've put in these first couple of days to welcome our students back. I'm sure that you can all appreciate just how incredibly exhausting it is and incredibly draining. And every time I walk through that building, all I see is smiles on the faces and staff members, again, both classified and licensed, encouraging kiddos. I quite honestly, I've moved to third grade this year, and I think that might be why I'm feeling so run down. I have a new appreciation for those lower grades after doing fourth and fifth my entire career. I can't see Dr. Klinger, but I would guess that she just smiled and chuckled a little bit at that realization on my part. Maybe I was a little bit too cocky, and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it at the start of the year with those third graders. I also wanted to recognize the district's adjustment with convocation this year. I think it was thoroughly enjoyed by a lot of our members. Most we really enjoyed hearing from the student, from the staff, and from the board member, from people that are engaged in the Gresham-Barlow School District on a daily basis. It was the student speaker was phenomenal. I mean, just speaking for myself, it definitely brought some tears to my eyes hearing her story. And I think that it's important that we hear those stories as often as possible. Other than that, that's what I have this evening. Like I said, I was going to be brief. The last thing I'm going to say again, because this is on record and this is for Dr. Klinger, and she can share it with you guys, is go Big Red as Nebraska moves into this year.
Thank you. Right. We're moving into our action items now. And the first action item is nominations for the OSBA Board of Directors, Multnomah Region, positions 17 and 19. We are not required to make a nomination. Usually the school boards that are directly involved with the folks make the nomination. My position is not currently open. So the two positions that currently have people that have been serving in them. There we go. Katrina Dowdy is in position 17, and she is a board member with the Multnomah ESD. And then position 19 is currently held by Sonia McKenzie, who is in her final term as past president of OSBA. So we will have an opportunity to weigh in on those if those folks do get nominated, or if there are others that will be nominated as well from other areas. And again, a big part of what OSBA is going to be doing is lobbying this year. That is going to be the absolute work that they're going to be working on this year. So unless anyone has anything they would like to do with that, I would recommend that we not make a nomination at this point. Not because I don't think they wouldn't do it, but I'd like to let their districts have an opportunity to do this. So, and then I was looking on here, the type is very small. Sarah, what's the deadline to oh, go ahead, Mr. Peterson.
I move to declare that the board has no candidates to nominate for positions 17 and 19 on the OSBA Board of Directors.
So it's been moved by Director Peterson, seconded by Director Keithley, that the Gresham-Barlow Board of Education does not have a candidate for nomination for position 17 and 19. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right, any opposed? All right, thank you.
Superintendent Hugh.
All right, Superintendent Hugh. This is the declaring surplus district property.
Thank you, Chair Howitt. Just giving you a little bit of history. On March 15, 2023, at our regular board work session, CFO at the time, Jordan Ely, and myself brought forward a recommendation to the board to review and surplus some property that the board and that the school district has owned. The district recently had the property on Southwest and Chase Road house evaluated. At that point in time, we assumed that there was a motion by the board. Unfortunately, the board did not move to surplus the property at that time. So therefore, technically, the board cannot allow the superintendent to sell the property unless the property is first allowed to be surplused. We actually did this unbeknownst to ourselves, and through the process that Mr. Eubanks had mentioned, we have come to realize that we are not in a position to actually sell property. We actually sold the one property at Chase Road, but we have not finished the sale of the Southwest property. So at this juncture, after talking to legal counsel, we have been shared with us that the district will need to actually surplus the two properties, and at a later time, the district would come to the board and ask if we can sell the property. Again, problematic for the Chase property because we actually have sold that property and money has exchanged hands, but we are putting a pause on the Southwest property at this point in time. And I think because of some of the questions and concerns that community members have not just shared tonight, but have shared with the board over the last couple of months. I think it's an opportunity for us to actually pause the sale of the Chase property and allow us to do some investigation, Salquist property, thank you, and do some chance to investigate that more fully so that we can come to you as a board with a recommendation. But I am asking the board to take action tonight to actually surplus the property that we should have asked you in March of 2023 that the board did not actually take. So I'm open to questions. And then, of course, this is a motion on the table for discussion.
So for clarification, questions for clarifying. There are two motions that are being requested. If there are more questions directed to the motion, they will be made after the motion is made. But otherwise, if there are questions around the process, we can ask those now. But otherwise, we are looking at two separate action items. The first one being the Chase property, the second one being the Salquist property. Ms. Peterson.
My question is over the legal bounds of declaring it surplus or not. If we do declare it surplus, when does the district, is the district on a timeline to have to dispose of the asset, or and then provided there is no sunset and that there is no boundary. So if that is the answer, why declare it surplus, particularly for the Salquist property tonight?
I think we have done an analysis of the two pieces of property, and certainly the Chase property, the district is not able to utilize for district facilities. And that one is already sold. The Salquist property, again, we would need to bring that forward to you and make that request. I don't think it matters if you choose not to surplus the properties, but we fully intend at some point to actually sell those assets because they're not going to be utilized for schools or for current district facilities. We are still in the process of trying to figure out a possible home for the district office, but I do not believe that that is in any immediate decision that has to be made on that.
And mine was going to be very similar to Blake's, so the sale is on pause, right? And does that mean that it's no longer going through? Like we could pause and not cause it, declare it surplus, and we could go through a different, more holistic look at, potential other buyers and all that. Like, I guess, where are we at in the process? And my question was, would it be wise just to not declare surplus until we want to go further down the road?
Superintendent Hugh.
So the Chase property, again, the reason why we're asking that one to be surplus because we actually sold that property and we've already received the money from that property. The Salquist property, we don't have any intention at this point because we're pausing that process. And we're needing to talk to legal counsel and we're needing to try to respond to community concerns about that. So that is not something that we're going to be moving forward with quickly. I think there's some issues that need to be resolved. There's some transparency and communication that I want to make sure that our community hears from the school district. We did not have any misintent about selling the property. We felt like we went through a process, but now we've come to find out that there were some errors that we need to rectify immediately. So the urgency on my part is the fact that we've already concluded a financial sale of one of the pieces of property. So I would highly recommend to the board that you actually approve that as surplus. The other one, we are planning to put it on pause, as like I said, we are planning to talk to our legal counsel about where we are with that. But I want to assure the board that I will slow down until there's a plan forward where I can communicate directly with you and our community so that when I do ask if I would like it to be a surplus that we understand what we're speaking to and what are the benefits for us moving in that direction moving forward. So I apologize that this process has been not easy, but we were going on some information that we thought we knew at the point in time. But once we had heard, I asked Dennis Clegg to communicate with our realtor and say that we're going to pause that. And then we've been talking to legal counsel who says the first thing that you need to do as a district is to actually surplus the properties. And so that's why I'm in front of you this evening asking for that to happen.
Director Keithley.
I remember in the meetings us talking about that we wouldn't need, that the definition of why it would be surplus. But I'm not sure that that information was ever conveyed in a real like white paper. Here's the basis for that decision, particularly to the community. So if we're pausing the sale, I would suggest pausing the surplus until we can really be more transparent about the fact that we don't need it and why. Make that argument about why we don't need it and be communicate that better. I guess that's because that's what the community it was questioned as part of all the discussion.
Director Peterson.
You said that you had spoken with legal counsel. My question is about the Chase property. Obviously concerns expressed today. Just want to kind of circle around that a little bit. Are there concerns about the validity of the sale and the accuracy of the listing that we would have any level of liability for, according to legal counsel? Or have you been able to address that question?
I have not been able to address the specificity of what Mr. Eubanks just shared because he had sent that today, that one about the Chase property. But in my conversation with legal counsel, the fact that we actually sold the property is the reality that it should have been surplus. It wasn't surplus. I need to come and ask you to surplus that piece of property. Money has already exchanged hand on the Chase property. So additional liabilities, I would say that we're going to have to lean on legal counsel to provide that data and information to me. But I didn't get any information from our legal counsel that says that we have already sold the Chase property. So this is more of a formality. I cannot say with full certainty, but in our conversation, it was really about understanding that it should have been surplus. It wasn't surplus, and we sold the property, and now we need to make sure that we've gone through the process to actually surplus that piece of property. The Saltquist property is a little more problematic because of the amount of land and some of the concerns that the community has shared. So that's also why we are pausing on that. So you can certainly take action on one and not take action on the other. And you can direct me to ensure that I'm communicating with our community as well as with you as a board prior to making any recommendation to actually surplus the Saltquist property. But the Chase property has already been sold and we've already received the funds. And I'll look to Mr. Clegg because I think he's deposited that money.
Director Gomez has a question.
Does declaring a property surplus also approve its sale? Or can we declare surplus and then later on we still have to approve the sale?
So going back, when we thought we had asked you to surplus the property back in 2023, at that point in time, if you as a board surplus that property, at a later time, we did come to you as a board and ask you to sell the property, which you gave us permission, but you really did not have the authority to give us the permission because we hadn't surplus the property. So I think it's semantics at this point. It's clearly we did not follow the process, but there was no misintent on our part. So trying to be fully transparent to our community, we are asking for the board to surplus the Chase property at this point, and we are taking a pause on the Saltquist property until we can gather more information and we can have some conversations with our community and with you. So if I do come back in the future, I may still want to ask the board to consider surplusing the Saltquist property. But as far as the immediate needs of the district and moving our district office, that is something that is going to be paused as well.
So I think I would like, just to state it for clarification. So we're being asked tonight to surplus the Chase property that we thought had been surplus back in 2023. On the Saltquist property, pausing on that, can we still have conversation about what we'd like to use that property for if it's not in a surplus pool? We can still have conversation about what's the best use in whole or part with that property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we do need to make at least one motion. We do not need to make, I mean, we could make a second motion and vote it down. But the first motion, it sounds like we definitely need to make that motion because we've sold the property. Yes, Kathy.
I would move to declare the district property located on 5039 Southeast Chase Road as surplus and be disposed in a manner that is in the best interest of the district.
I second. All right, it's been moved by Kathy, seconded by Myra to declare the district property located at 5039 Southeast Chase Road as surplus and be disposed in a manner that is in the best interest of the district. Are there any further questions about that? Yes, Director Riegelman.
Just one comment. The information that we've got from the community was talking about inaccuracies in
Right
that
now.
process with Chase. Can we
Okay.
just clarify that we will vote to surplus it, but that you would look into inaccuracies and inform the new owners if those are found? Is that possible?
Director Peterson.
I think the most appropriate place for my discussion would be after a vote, because it's tangential to this whole process.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right, so if there's no further question on the Chase property motion before us, all those in favor signify by saying aye. I can't see you, Dr. Barnes. Okay, thank you. So, and no opposed, so that is unanimous. Now, on the second one, the property located at Saltquist Road. It does not sound like we need to surplus that. Do we need to do an action that just says to just, I'm not quite sure what we want to do, but it sounds like we don't need to surplus it to continue trying to find out what we want to do with that property.
We just don't make a motion.
Right, right. So, Director Peterson.
I think the question that you might be getting at is there value to the district in us considering a motion, deliberating it, and then voting in any case, yes or no, in order to provide an official cause, or the board to vote no, it would provide an official cause for pausing the sale. And I'm wondering if that would, if that's the most appropriate procedurally to do.
The only question that I have about that is voting no on surplus. What would change coming back later to vote yes on surplus? I would rather just pull the whole thing back and leave it as the property as it is. It's not surplus. It's still in our inventory. Yes, Director.
That's one way. I mean, our options are don't make a motion at all, but to Director Peterson's point, would it benefit the district discussions with attorneys or otherwise to have the board have been said no specifically? No, not forever, in my view, and what I can articulate right now is what I'm going to need to see in order to vote yes to surplus, because there are confusions about birth rates and school, all of that stuff to my mind, needs to be defined better before we make a decision. But it's really whether or not it would benefit the process for us to say no, or we just don't make a motion yet. I mean, like, until a future time.
So I guess I want to go back to the question then, if it is or is not on surplus. If we put it on surplus, can you take it off of surplus? Or is that not the best way to do it, is to just leave it as it is or to vote it down? I'm just not quite sure. We don't do this very often.
I would recommend that we would not surplus it if you have concerns about and have questions. I feel like our team can go ahead and get the answers to the questions that you might have around birth rates and accuracies around, but that is very different than making sure that we actually follow the legal process of actually having to surplus property or not surplus property, and then having to come to you as a board at a later time and then saying that I'm requesting to sell the property because the district doesn't have a need. So I think there's two portions to that. I would prefer that we do not take any action, that we'll pause at this point in time. It is not surplus, which means it's back in the district pool of properties that we own. And we have now paused with selling that property. And then we, I think, have a little bit of a road to move toward as far as communicating with our community, as well as getting legal counsel, and then making sure you as a board have I have answered the questions that you have. If at some point in time, I am still requesting, number one, that you surplus the property for future sale or future consideration, and when that may be. But I don't think that that's the right time at this point. And it looks like we have some work to do with our community as well as with legal counsel, specifically around the Southwest property. And I would request that you not take any action and allow us to take a pause and then let me have some time to work with our team and work with our legal counsel.
My comments would be first just to thank the community that did show up and advocate. And with what I'm about to say, I'm here to say very loudly that this was a procedural misstep. I laud the district for the courage to bring it back to the board, because that real estate is not what the district does, and this community does not want the district doing real estate. They want it educating our kids, and they do a fantastic job of that. As it relates to this, one comment we received resonated with my notes and my review, and that is that we were under the impression that this was single-family homes, 81 of them. Just for public awareness, the school district, any seller of property does not dictate the zoning. It does not dictate the terms that a buyer or uses that the buyer does. That is at a city level, and in the state of Oregon, because of the mixed use law, that is at a state statutory level. It is not long-term in the best interests of our kids or our community for a school district to hold on to property that it cannot functionally use to serve kids. And so I would encourage advocacy at the appropriate levels going forward, assuming we're not taking action, because it sounds like that's the superintendent's recommendation to us. Thank you for making your concerns known. It's easy for us to sit right here and deliver quote unquote a win. Thanks to your advocacy. But in reality, it's not a long-term win until your advocacy reaches the appropriate levels at the city and the state. Should the district propose sale prior to when we review our contract network, our legal and our auditors and our real estate agent of record, I would expect some level of procurement that allows us to vet real estate support differently. This has been a disappointing process as it relates to our representation on the real estate front. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My request is that we have an overabundance of documentation about this, because we don't do this very often, and the potential of the major players involved. I think that's how we wound up with some of the confusion before, because we had some of the major players that are no longer here. And that will be in effect soon, not to bring it up at every single meeting, but counting the days. And so I would like to make sure that this is very carefully documented. That would have been my only reason for doing a motion, because it puts it in a different documentation. However, I would defer to not having the motion letting it not go to surplus, but also not having it go to sale. So do we need anything else that it's already been pulled from sale? So, okay, paused. Okay, paused. All right. So do you have anything else, Kathy?
Well, I guess we make sure that in all the conversations with legal counsel, we know all of our different options going forward when we get back the information. So if it's paused, you know, can we say stop it like you just, I mean, what are our options legally for what we can do moving forward when we get all the information that we have, that we need to make a decision?
And I will make sure that we talk to a land use attorney to answer those questions. But I will, I think I have my directions from the board, so thank you.
I just want to be clear. So pause, does that mean that the sale, that the contract that we have is null and void? Or is it that it's continuing? Because I don't understand what pause means.
We are not able to move forward with the sale of the property because the board did not ever surplus it, which means you would not be able to give me permission to have sold the property. And we sold the property, or at least we were in the process of selling the property. So the sale has not been finalized because we have not received the money or signed on the dotted line. So at this point, we have earnest money that has to be returned to the potential buyer. But when I say we paused it, is I was hoping that we would be able to get some clarification from legal counsel that we could engage with our community. But it appears that there's quite a bit more work on that front. So maybe the pausing is not the right word, and but the property is not for sale. It is within the district's ownership at this point because you never surplus it in the first place, which means you never gave me permission to sell the property.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
That's tonight. Okay. The only property that we approved for surplus is the Chase property. Okay. All right. Thank you. Got all that, Sarah? Okay. All right. Next up, and this has got Sarah DeBoy and Ty Gonrowski, the wrestling mat donation to Gresham High School.
Evening again, Chair Howitt and Board of Directors. We bring forward to you a very generous donation to Gresham High School, and that's why Ty is joining me here. Per board policy KH, when we have donations in excess of $10,000 in value, it needs to be approved by the board for us to receive it fully. You do have an explanation there of the purpose. This is a competition mat for our wrestling team. And I have Ty here just in case there's any really specific questions. But basically, we're just staying in alignment with board policy and to make sure that you approve the acceptance of this very generous donation to our athletics department.
The only question I have is I'm always concerned, yay, we're getting this. What does that mean between Barlow and Gresham now?
So the mat is customized as it was delivered from our donor, because it was donated as an item, right, as opposed to a cash donation. And it does have a large gopher on it. I know if Barlow was so inclined, we would be happy to load it up and take it out if they need it for an event, but it does have a large gopher.
So they could use it for an event?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of an effort to move these mats because they're real heavy, but we could get it out there if needed.
Well, and our championships are being held at Gresham High School this year, so.
First of all, whoever donated it, thank you. That's huge. That's awesome. The old mat, the current mat, is it reusable at all? Like, can we bring it down to the middle schools or?
So we're working on that as a concept. I think we still need mats in the practice room.
Okay.
And because this is a competition mat, this will go up in the hoist. If you've been in the main gym, there's that hoist up there. And we haven't had one stick in there because we've needed these mats in the practice room as well. So as these go up, there should be maybe one left over that we think now we'll be able to cycle out. And with that one, there'd been talk about maybe trying to work with a middle school and see if we can put one there and help grow those programs.
I'll just give thumbs up.
Oh, Commissioner, there you go, Kathy.
I think that the point that you were getting at for Barlow is, you know, equitably what the conditions of the mats are at Barlow versus now Gresham, and not that we can find a donor, you know, with the same capacity, but just to keep that in mind. But the one thing that I want to point out is that you don't, it's not just by chance, and sometimes it can be, that you have a donor of this magnitude come forward. But I really think that it speaks to the level of relationships that you guys have built in the community, and you know, and Ty, all the work that you do with athletics. I mean, I just really, obviously, it is born of the good work that you're doing. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So this is an action item, and we do have the motion there. So if someone would like to make
I move to accept the donation of a wrestling mat valued in the amount of $20,235 for use at Gresham High School.
Second.
Been moved by Blake, seconded by Sean, to accept the donation of a wrestling mat valued in the amount of $20,235 for use at Gresham High School. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Exciting news. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I realized I had taken some notes down on here, but our first action item, if we go by our board goals, was an opportunity. The second potential item was the strategic priorities. This one was safety. So it falls so far under our 3 goals that we had for the board. And this one coming up now, the District Equity Committee, Educational Equity Advisory Committee, falls under belonging. And Don Hoyer Jackson.
Thank you, Chair Howitt. Hello, Board. We are here again to talk about the District Equity Committee, which is under the OAR 581-022-2307, which requires that every school district, as of 2 years ago, that has more than 10,000 students, establish a District Equity Committee, and we're included in that. We did establish that committee last year in October officially. This committee is responsible for advising the school board and superintendent on the educational equity impacts of both policy decisions and informing and advising the school board and superintendent when a school-based situation arises that negatively impacts underrepresented students. So time has been set aside tonight to talk about that. We last year did a lot with our District Equity Committee, and we are in the position now of having had several members of that committee who could no longer be on the committee. 2 because of graduation, and 1 just life took over. And so we needed to replace 2 to 3 family / community members and 2 to 3 student members. We decided to go with 3 of each because not everybody can make it all of the time, and we really want to center student voice. This legislation requires for the selection of committee members that we send out information about the committee to our district, and that applicant members will be selected by the superintendent. The committee must be made up of family members, employees, students, and community members. And that we have to ensure that membership is primarily representative of underserved student groups. So we sent out an application in mid-August. Looking at Athena. Athena sent out the application through Parent Square to all of our families. And we sent it out to students 8th through 12th grade. We're really trying to get middle school representation on that committee. We had 28 people reply. About 75, 73%, I think, were 71, should have looked at the slide. 71% were made up of students and of families and community members, and 28.6% were made up of students. That's a huge uptick from the number of students that we had apply last year. We followed our plan that we had presented to you last time in terms of using the rubric and the ways in which that we selected, and we have 3 student members and 3 community/family members to put before you. So we are asking that you all approve those members so that they can join our existing other members, which are made up of staff, community, and students in our district equity committee.
So part of the presentation had the list of who are the continuing members and the new members. So what you're looking for then is the motion to add the new members to.
The new members,
I wasn't sure if it was confirming the continuing members to stay on, but you're just looking for that 6 folks that would be part of the new members.
Thank you. I wasn't very clear on that. So yes, we have 6 new members that we need approval from the board.
The only thing I wanted to say publicly in this meeting is that we had some conversations when you reviewed this in detail about the defined roles of DEC, which is informing the school district board and superintendent, and informing about a lot of the work that you do. And I just wanted to make the statement that the board goals talks about safety, opportunity, belonging, and opportunity, or achievement, sorry. And so we want to really do a better job of, because this is brand new, no one's really defined the whole parameter of it, of how we can really use that information to determine how well we're doing with the board goals. So that's our plan moving forward. At some point, we'll have it come back and we can be more definitive about that.
And I love that you brought that up because I think this is absolutely about belonging, but this committee also advises around safety. It also advises around academic achievement and opportunity. So it's a great confluence and intersection of all of those things.
All right. Any further clarification? If not, can I get a motion, please?
Move to make a motion to accept the 6 new members. I have to read it. This is my first motion. All right, I move to accept the superintendent's recommendation of district equity committee members as listed.
You got a second on that one, David, so way to go. All right, so it's been moved by David, seconded by Kathy to accept the superintendent's recommendation for the district equity committee members as listed, and they were listed in our packet as new members. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
So we were told that the AC was going to be on hardcore tonight.
Chair, I may know somebody that can fix that.
Yeah. Did they not know that we were going to be here after 6 o'clock? So, all right, we're going to keep going. We got just a couple more things left to do. The next thing up is declaring a vacancy for the interim superintendent position. I'm going to read it off of here. It's easier for me to read it off of here. There we go. Okay, I got it. During the superintendent report on July 3rd, 2024, school board business meeting, Superintendent Hugh announced his plans to retire at the end of December 2024. In order to begin the process to select the new superintendent, we'll have a vacancy between January 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2025, requiring potentially an interim in that time period. And we also have our search firm process as well that we'll see in the next agenda item. So what this is it's on recommendation from, was it both legal counsel, COSA, which is they changed their name, what is it? The Coalition of School Administrators. We changed it. All right. So we did get some good advice and we are following through on that advice. And so this just declares that it is vacant effective January 1, so that we can look for an interim. And with that, I will entertain a motion unless there's any further question.
I'll move to declare the position of Gresham-Barlow School District Superintendent vacant effective January 1st, 2025.
So it's moved by Blake, seconded by Holly, to declare the position of Gresham-Barlow School District Superintendent vacant effective January 1, 2025. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for your work on this and contacting folks for us. I appreciate that. Kathy and I are working on this together, and she took this one in a big way and got us good information for it. So the final part is the item that was moved out of the consent agenda into action item I6. And it lays out the process and the timeline for our request for proposals to the superintendent search firms. And we contacted some of the firms, and we have firms that are very well versed in doing this kind of work. And we have run this by our legal counsel a couple of times. And Kathy, is there anything else that you would like to add for this?
Actually, I have one point of clarification because and I'm actually glad that you brought it out, so that's good. Thank you. And that is that when you look at the actual RFP, there's a section in terms of the timeline that we can move it around as needed, but that our intent is to appoint a superintendent no later than July 1 of 2025. To try to work within our current board agenda meeting dates as much as possible. I put in here that, it's a tight time frame from the RFPs. It is absolutely a process that's used by every other RFP that I looked at, and there was more than 10 that I reviewed, most of them in the state of Oregon. But that the policy committee will review the ones that come in after the deadline, and then the firm would be selected on the 20th. That was just a couple of days after.
Is that the superintendent search committee, not the policy committee?
Superintendent search
Okay, I
committee.
just wanted to
Sorry.
clarify, so I know.
Yeah, superintendent search committee. Y'all knew what I meant, so that's really good for tracking. Thank you. But the point though is that if we select the firm on the 20th, it gives them 10 days in order to come up with the process that they will suggest on the 30th. Well, I probably just picked those dates because it was a Monday, maybe, but doesn't coincide with the policy meeting. So my question.
Meeting.
Or board meeting. So if the superintendent search committee reviews the firms and wants to bring their recommendation to the board is this contract, the dollar figure require board action to approve the contract before they can start working. And if that's the case, we can move it to the second, but that moves everything back a week. So A, does it require a motion by the board to approve the firm? And B, do we want to do that outside of a regular board meeting?
A, yes, it does, because it's adopting a contract. And B, we can have a 15-minute virtual meeting and a special meeting. So we can work that outside of our regularly scheduled meetings and have a short meeting, one topic, and take care of it. So trying to make sure that it fits within our regularly scheduled meetings is a good idea. If it doesn't quite fit, then I think we can work with it in a short amount of time.
I don't think all contracts have to go to the board, so I think it's a fair question. But I think it sounded like the intention of the board or strategic planning meeting that would go before the board for a vote.
Well, and actually that's a really good clarification because this is such I would want the board's approval of what the superintendent search committee is recommending. I'd really want that to come before the board, whether it's a required motion or not, because it is kind of a big deal. I wouldn't want just 3 people of the board to make that decision.
So I have one question about the RFP, and I'm sorry that I didn't catch it sooner. and then I'm asking it now, but one of the conversation points was that we were maybe going to ask this firm to also help evaluate whether, given the community feedback and scoping of the position, whether it would be a local, regional, national search. Does this RFP address that?
I think that, well, a couple of things. One is the RFP, and it is hard to kind of keep in mind that it really is gathering information that is pertinent enough for us to differentiate between the firms and their qualifications and abilities. Once we do that, then we can dictate exactly what it is that they want us to do. So if we trust that they can do the work, then absolutely those things that we miss, I mean, and actually, it isn't even a question that we would ask them, what do you think we should do? Because it should be based on input from the community and board members and district staff. So I don't think they're in a position to do that. It would just be, how would you make that decision? And I think that's going to be so basic that we don't need to add it, but we certainly could. But we definitely would add it into the contract before once we selected the firm.
So this is an action item, and it's a action to approve the superintendent search firm proposal.
I move to approve the Gresham-Barlow School District Superintendent Search Request for Proposal process as presented.
Second.
You made a second? All right, I mean, I know. So it's been moved by Blake, seconded by David to accept the superintendent search firm's request for proposal. Any further discussion? I appreciate the work that the committee has done at this point, and I think this is good work to get going. So no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. There you go. So is this going to out tomorrow? Quickly, soon. We have a presentation tonight, a start of the year transportation update, and this has Mr. Cook's name on it. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Chair. We haven't given a transportation startup before, but there's reasons for that. And I know there's been concern about the construction, especially on the east side of the district. So this year I was asked by the superintendent to give you an update and offer questions. Overview is, we'll start with the construction and the east side of the district. The overview is the people managing the construction have been very cooperative and communicative with us, and Tammy and I have met several times. So they are trying very, very hard to reach out and meet us where they are. We've provided the information they've needed, bus routes, directions, stops, et cetera, even the updates as of today, because we've had to adjust some things at the beginning of the year starts to, and that's normal. So we had a meeting at 1 o'clock with them today. We gave them those updates. We addressed some concerns that we had because there has been one bus impacted twice now. Once it was a 15-minute delay, and once it ended up, by the time it got to school, it ended up being an hour and 10. Don't quote me, it was long, and it's right in there. So it was one bus impacted for a long time today. Just didn't get through the construction and should have. They were not aware of that. They're aware of that now, and I believe there'll be a change for tomorrow. There will be, as they continue their road improvements, there will be closures, but buses will be permitted through those closures where others may not, because they're prioritizing us. After we get through the next week or two, I believe that the road improvements will be more shoulder work and one-lane closures for roads. And that's predicated on them finishing some work this week, which they believe they will do. Our drivers who would tell us if they thought it was unsafe have not thought it was unsafe. They've been pretty clear that things were okay. The delay was not acceptable to that one driver, and there was obvious reasons for that. But the drivers haven't expressed concerns, and Tammy is tracking that in detail. So that is good news too, because we will rely on them to tell us if there are. They're out there every day. That's about it for the construction update at this point. Do you have questions? And I'll give you an update on other things.
Dr. Teagle. Okay.
A couple things about that. Number one, do we know do we have a list of everything that it was required by PWB in terms of what they would provide? Like the buses prioritizing, trucks not going in front of the school, all the parameters that they agreed to. Do we have a list of those that we're watching for daily?
I haven't seen a written list. I know what we've written down in minutes and what Tammy and I are tracking and asking bus drivers to do.
So I'd like to know those. And also it was really insistent that there be a person designated solely to communicate these kinds of issues. And so do you have that with PWB? I know you're working with Benita and all those people. That's a higher level.
Yep.
Do you have the person on the ground that is responsible for monitoring that?
Bonita and the team are responsible for meeting with the people on the ground, and they actually had a meeting today with road people, so it was after our meeting. So they are the ones liaising between us and the people on the road, and they're doing it pretty regularly.
Sorry, one more. And that was a conversation I had with Superintendent Hugh. I don't want more work for us or for a student. However, in those instances where there are issues, I want them kept somewhere so that we can get the totality of how this is impacting us. And we're just readily available to offer that when we need to provide it to anybody.
I asked Tammy that today. She said she is tracking that, both the good and the not so good. I've shared with you that given the number of bus routes we run and the number of stops that we pick up at, I'm a bit surprised that we only had one bus impacted twice. Still a lot, still shouldn't happen. But I'm pleasantly surprised otherwise that it's not impacting us in the way that I was anticipating.
Director Peterson, would you have a question?
No, I was just gonna clarify this way.
Approximately how frequently, Mr. Cook, will we be getting updates on this? Will we be getting some interim in the work sessions as well, or just monthly at the business meeting?
Our next meeting, we scheduled it today, is the third week of September, and I don't have my calendar open in front of me, so I think it's on that Wednesday.
One thing that we could look at, and I'm not sure what the construction schedule was, but perhaps we get an update that's in conjunction with how the construction is ramping up in those areas, so that we get a kind of a more immediate report of how we're being impacted by the different data points. I'm always using data stages of construction.
If I followed I didn't take as detailed notes on that today. I was more focused on on-time buses. But if I followed their project timeline, they are looking at October 23rd, moving into the next phase. And the next phase would be more, they'll be finished with road improvements, which is good news for us. And then moving into that more direct, they're starting to build the plant and clear that stuff. So what's that traffic going to do to our buses as well?
Any other questions? Yeah, Superintendent Hill.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a recommendation that Mr. Cook share in our monthly business meetings, any updates that he has. And then as far as when we know that we're moving into a different phase, we'll make sure that we share the information with you as well. But I think what I'm understanding from Mr. Cook's presentation and the questions from the board is that we share updates with you as a board on the business meeting. At least we will give you some updated information, and then certainly when there's transitioning from one stage or one phase to the next one, we'll make sure that we have that information to be able to share with the Portland Water Bureau folks, as well as making sure that Tim and Mr. Cook can document and share that information with them.
Yes, go ahead.
I spoke with Superintendent Hugh about this today, but my only other request is that if we have an opportunity to communicate with our community as they're being impacted, how they can pass that information on to us or whoever you directly want it to be communicated to. But they're the ones seeing those buses come and go and are on those roads. So if that's an option, that would be fantastic.
Tammy and I talked about that today. She suggested for now using that per student number. It's the least confusing, and it'll route to different people there too. They upgraded their phone system this summer as well. So that is the one that I think is best for us. Then it comes directly to us.
just to piggyback on that is, I preference, but superintendent, you can make the decision, or you, would be that we send out some kind of communication to our, at least those bus routes that are impacted by that. So that they know, in case they're not watching this
Yep.
meeting. Thank you.
I'm certain they're watching. Okay, okay.
And I'm not as familiar because I don't have kids in school that are taking the buses anymore, but I don't know, as we move into sports events
Mhm.
where students are being transported odd times away from the pickup and delivery of students, just making sure that somebody's paying attention to that. I don't want the kids to be late to their performance.
Fair enough. We will pay attention.
And I also, it's my understanding that they're going to be running trucks during evening activities. And I'd like to know how that is impacting students and families and other schools that compete against us in, I guess, positive and negative ways.
Mine has nothing to do with construction. The kids who are not in the construction route or area, are they making it to school on time? Do we have enough buses to picking up kids, particularly our newcomers and new kids to the district?
I was going to go into that in a minute if the other questions are finished, Director. Okay. Okay. All right. This is the first year since the pandemic where we actually have extra drivers. So yes, and we have 3 or 4 drivers, 3 in the background in case there are challenges with a bus breaking down, something happening in a building so we can get a new bus out more quickly. It's also the first year that since the pandemic that the office staff is not driving buses the first week. That caused significant communication challenges with the community because there was nobody there to answer phones because they had to get kids home. That was a problem. And it was one of those unsolvable ones until we got drivers in. So that's been a positive. When it comes to special transportation, we brought in 7 additional vans this year and have drivers for those as well. I've heard that some of, and this is more related to first week of school, littles not getting on the bus or getting on the wrong bus. There have been some late buses, special ed students, and some of our buses getting to middle school, but it really is, even like today at Barlow, first run, they're the first of the day. They had 3 buses that had to be called back because kids went to the wrong area and didn't get on the bus, and they had so many they just called them back. That causes a rolling effect to the elementary and then to the middle school. So that caused some late buses in a lot of places. That happens. After we get through those bumps in that first week, we should be okay. But to answer your question, yes, we do have enough transportation, and we did bring them in, and we have drivers for that. There's some new things coming on board too. We haven't rolled out to parents yet. We will at the end of the month. First View is a program first students had for a long time. They've used it in other areas of the country. It enables parents and us to track buses in real time where they are, geolocated, track them by stop. If parents set the app up the way that we'll give them the directions, they can get a notice 10 minutes before the bus arrives so they know when to go out. So they're not waiting. So we will roll that out for the end of September. We didn't roll it out at the beginning of the year this year because you always have that continued rebalancing of buses, redoing of routes, other challenges that come into play, and it would have been confusing for the community and likely would have upset them. And we learned that from first student who's rolled it out in the rest of in other areas of the country that just wait. So that's coming, and it should be a very good service for parents. And it's already been a good service for us in the office for principals, because when buses have been late, they've been able to look for them and see them on their desktops. So they are already using it, and we're getting used to it. That way we'll be able to help the community when that gets rolled out. I should put out, just in case people are listening, the number I want you to call right now is 503-665-8193. I forgot to say that before. So if the community does see traffic problems and things, that's the number to report it to. And I will also comment, it has been, as I'm knocking on wood, it's been a very smooth start, like Superintendent Hugh has said, and it has been a much smoother start than we've had since the pandemic when it comes to buses. They're fully staffed. The office staff is relaxed. They're able to answer parent phone calls. And I don't know that this is completely true, but I haven't heard at the district office yet that we've had parents calling about buses. And that's the first time in a very long time. So secretary's not answering that. And to me, that's a very good sign. Other questions for me?
That phone number, Mr. Cook? is
503.
that- No, no,
Oh, sorry.
I wrote it down already. I already have memorized, it's already ingrained. I
Gotcha.
have no children in the system, but I will call.
I can say it as often as you like though.
Where else will that number be? If someone goes to our, GBSD website?
It is the
click on
first
a button.
student, it has been the first student transportation number now for 30 years. So it's the same one. It's on the website. Yeah,
On our website?
it should be. I'll double check.
Okay, just again, if I'm missing my kid and I'm trying to find them, a couple of different places to try and find that number.
I do know where both of your kids are though.
But you think?
Okay.
Yeah, good. Just want to reiterate a point that Mr. Cook mentioned. We do appreciate our community's grace over this first week and into the second week of school. We do have some children that are trying to get on buses, forgetting to step on buses, getting on the wrong bus stop. And so we also have community members who are realizing that we are now back in school and trying to get their kids on buses. So we're going to continue to work through issues that we have, but as I've been visiting schools at least yesterday and today, finding that we have drivers, we have kids that are waiting for buses, and so we're trying to get back into the swing of systems. But I want to publicly acknowledge the fact that First Student's doing an excellent job, but we are still asking our community for some patience and grace, particularly this weekend into next week.
One more thing to add. We just looked up on the website. It's under families, student transportation. Just go to that link.
I think we're at the end of the meeting now. Any other, is that it, Mr. Cook? Are we good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead and turn off my phone. Perfect, thank you. We're at the end of the meeting. So just reading the standard blurb pursuant to Oregon House Bill 2560, print 3, print A, which became effective January 1st, 2022. All meetings held by a governing body of a public body, excluding executive sessions, must provide to members of the general public, to the extent reasonably possible, an opportunity to access and attend the meeting by telephone, video, or other electronic or virtual means. Zoom link for virtual meeting attendance is provided for upcoming meetings. Our upcoming meetings are September 18, 2024, board work session at 6 p.m. in the partnership room of the Center for Advanced Learning. October 2nd, 2024, a special board work session at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers conference room in the Public Safety and Schools building, followed at 7 p.m. on October 2nd in the council chambers, Public Safety and Schools building. And after his wonderful debut today of making motions and seconds, we have one of our board members who will not be in attendance on October 2nd. Do make sure, as we are getting into the season of meetings, that you let Sarah know if you're not available. We definitely, as we had a lot of things coming up now with superintendent search, et cetera, we want to make sure we have a quorum. Thank you, David, for letting us know ahead of time. And I believe it's been noted that you will be absent on October 2nd. So someone else will have to make the motions in the seconds. Someone else will have to take over. With that, there'll be no other business before the board. We are adjourned. All right.